The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the bustling streets of New York City. I, Dr. Ethan Carter, stood outside my lab, feeling the electric buzz of the city around me. The air was thick with excitement and anxiety, as it often was in this concrete jungle. Just a few blocks away, Central Park sprawled like a green oasis amidst the chaos, but today, it was anything but tranquil. My phone buzzed persistently in my pocket, pulling me from my thoughts. I pulled it out, glancing at the screen. Breaking news flashed in bold letters: unidentified creature spotted in Central Park. My heart raced. I quickly made my way to the nearest cafe, where a small crowd had gathered around a television mounted in the corner. The news anchor's voice crackled through the speakers, urgent and breathless. Reports are flooding in of a creature described as part human, part alien, exhibiting extraordinary agility and strength. The screen shifted to shaky footage captured by bystanders, showing a dark figure darting between trees, its movements fluid and almost surreal. What the hell is going on? I muttered under my breath, hardly aware of the woman next to me. She turned, her eyes wide with fear. "Did you see that? It's like something out of a movie," she exclaimed, her voice trembling. "Or a nightmare," I replied, my mind racing with possibilities. Genetic mutations, extraterrestrial life. This could redefine everything we understood about biology. But what did it mean for humanity? Suddenly, a commotion erupted outside as people began to flee from Central Park, screams piercing the air. Panic spread like wildfire, and I felt a surge of adrenaline. I had to see this for myself. I pushed through the crowd, my heart pounding in sync with my footsteps. As I approached the park, I could see the chaos unfolding before me. A group of onlookers stood frozen, pointing and gasping. I ducked under the police tape, my curiosity overpowering my caution. What I saw next sent chills down my spine. There, amidst the trees, was a figure, tall and lithe, with a shimmering skin that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly glow. It turned, revealing features that were unsettlingly familiar yet distinctly alien. Eyes that glinted like polished obsidian met mine, and I felt a strange pull, a connection I couldn't explain. "Get back!" a police officer shouted, brandishing his weapon. The crowd gasped collectively, the tension palpable. "Stay where you are." In that moment, the creature leaped with a grace I had never witnessed, disappearing into the depths of the park, leaving behind a stunned crowd. "What was that?" someone whispered, and I could feel the fear radiating from the onlookers. My mind raced. I needed to gather samples, data, anything that could help explain this phenomenon. I turned on my heel, making my way back to my lab, the events of the day spinning in my head. As I entered my lab, the familiar scent of antiseptic and the hum of machines welcomed me. I grabbed my equipment, my hands shaking with a mix of excitement and dread. I had to analyze the DNA of that creature. If it was indeed a hybrid, it could unlock secrets to our existence that we had never imagined. Hours later, I was surrounded by vials and slides, my microscope poised like an oracle. I placed a sample under the lens, my breath hitching as I observed the strands of DNA. It was unlike anything I had seen before. There were markers, clear indicators of human and something else, something foreign. "This is monumental," I whispered to myself, barely able to contain my exhilaration. My fingers trembled as I took notes, but a nagging feeling crept into the back of my mind. What did this mean for humanity? What were the implications of such a discovery? The door swung open, and my assistant, Mark, rushed in, his face pale. "Ethan, you need to see this. The news is going crazy about the creature. People are terrified." Terrified. I echoed, my mind racing. They should be excited. This could change everything. Excited? Mark scoffed, shaking his head. "No one sees it that way. They're calling for action, for containment. They think it's a threat." I leaned back in my chair, the weight of his words settling like a stone in my stomach. I had dedicated my life to understanding the complexities of genetics, to unraveling the mysteries of life itself. But in that moment, I realized the world might not be ready for the truth. The air was thick with tension as I stepped into the chaotic scene of the protest. Signs waved fervently above heads, emblazoned with slogans like "Protect Our Kind" and "No Aliens Allowed." The crowd surged around me, a cacophony of angry shouts and fervent chants filling the air. I felt the pulse of fear and anger as I maneuvered through the throng, my heart racing with the realization that this was no ordinary news event. This was history unfolding, and I had to capture it. "Get out of our city!" a man shouted, his voice hoarse from yelling. "We don't want hybrids here." I approached a group of protesters, their faces flushed with emotion. "Can I get your thoughts on the hybrids?" I asked, raising my voice to be heard over the din. "They're a threat," a woman retorted, her eyes narrowed. "They'll take over our world if we let them. Just look at how they moved, like they were born to hunt us. Don't you think they might just want to coexist?" I pressed, trying to unlock a hint of reason amidst their fervor. "They're part human, after all." "Part human?" a man scoffed, spitting the words like venom. "They're not like us. We need to protect our species." As the words hung in the air, a chill crept down my spine. The fear was palpable, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a deeper divide. I scribbled notes furiously, my mind racing with the implications of what I was witnessing. Later, I found myself seated at a cafe, my laptop open and coffee cooling beside me as I processed the day's events. The protest echoed in my mind, and I knew I had to bring these voices to the forefront. Just as I began to type, my phone buzzed on the table. It was a message from Ethan. "Need to talk." "Urgent." I quickly gathered my things and headed to his lab. The sterile clinical environment felt like a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Ethan was pacing, his brow furrowed, hands clasped behind his back. "Mia, I'm glad you came," he said, urgency lacing his voice. "The government is discussing how to handle the hybrids, and it's not looking good. They're seeing them as a threat, not allies. Have you found anything new?" I asked, my pulse quickening. He nodded, his expression grave. "I had a meeting with some officials today. They're torn, but there are factions pushing for containment. They think it's safer to eliminate the hybrids before they become a larger threat." "Containment? You mean?" I let the thought linger, a cold dread settling in my stomach. "Yes," Ethan confirmed, his voice barely a whisper. "They want to capture them, study them, or worse." Before I could respond, the lab door swung open, and a figure stepped inside. It was Zara, her presence magnetic and unsettling. I felt an inexplicable connection to her, a flicker of understanding passing between us. "Ethan," she said, her voice calm yet charged, "I need your help." "What's wrong?" Ethan asked, concern etched on his face. "There are those who want to use my kind for their own purposes," she replied, her gaze piercing into mine. "We aren't here to harm anyone. We want to coexist, but there are darker forces at play." I exchanged a glance with Ethan. "What do you mean?" I asked, leaning closer, eager to understand. "The hybrids are not just products of science," Zara continued, her voice steady. "We have a purpose, but many see us as a threat. I sense fear in you, but it's not just yours. It's a collective anxiety that's growing." "You can feel that?" I asked, my intrigue piqued. "Yes," she said softly, her expression earnest. "And it's why I came to you. I need you to help us tell our story." My heart raced. This was the story I had been searching for, but I also felt a wave of trepidation. "What if people don't believe you?" "Then we will show them," Zara replied, determination in her voice. The weight of her words settled over me like a shroud. I knew the truth was more complex than most were willing to accept. The world was changing, and I found myself at the center of a storm that threatened to rip apart the fragile fabric of humanity and its newest kin. "Let's do it," I said, a newfound resolve hardening my tone. "Let's show them who you really are." As we began to strategize, I felt a sense of purpose, but beneath it lay an unsettling awareness that the road ahead would be fraught with danger. The hybrids were not just emerging into our world, they were challenging everything we thought we knew about ourselves. As I sat in my dimly lit lab, the fluorescent lights flickering overhead, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was on the brink of uncovering something monumental. My fingers danced across the keyboard, scrolling through the data I had collected over the past few days. The hybrids, they were part of something far larger than I had initially imagined. The implications of my findings were unsettling, and I had to share them with Mia. "Mia," I called out, my voice breaking the silence of the lab. She had been engrossed in her own investigations, piecing together the human side of this tangled web. She looked up from her notes, her brow furrowed with curiosity. "What's going on, Ethan?" she asked, sensing the urgency in my tone. I've been digging into the organization behind the hybrids, I said, gesturing for her to come closer. What I found, it's disturbing. I pulled up a series of files on the monitor, the screen illuminating her face with a ghostly glow. Mia leaned in, her expression shifting from curiosity to shock as she scanned the documents. They're experimenting on them, she gasped. Like lab rats. Worse. They're trying to engineer a superspecies, I replied, my voice lowering as if the walls themselves might hear us. This organization believes they can control the hybrids, exploit their abilities. They see them as tools, not sentient beings. Mia's eyes widened, and I could see her mind racing. This could change everything. If the public finds out. Which is why we have to act quickly, I interrupted. We can't let them continue this twisted agenda. We need to expose them before it's too late. Easier said than done, she said, her voice tinged with skepticism. Who's going to believe us? The media is already painting the hybrids as threats. There's more, I continued, my heart pounding. Zara. She's been having visions. Dark ones. She believes that if humanity rejects the hybrids, catastrophic events could unfold. Catastrophic. Mia echoed, her tone shifting from disbelief to concern. What kind of events? I don't know, I admitted, running a hand through my hair. But I need to talk to her. She might have more information that could help us. Mia nodded, her determination evident. Let's find her. We need to get to the bottom of this before fear takes over. We made our way to the small safe house where Zara was staying, a nondescript building tucked away in a quiet neighborhood. As we approached, I felt a knot of anxiety tighten in my stomach. What if she couldn't help us? What if her visions were merely manifestations of fear? When we entered, Zara was sitting cross-legged on the floor, her eyes closed in concentration. She looked peaceful, but there was a palpable tension in the air, a sense that she was battling something much larger than any of us could comprehend. Zara, I called softly, crouching down beside her. She opened her eyes, and the moment our gazes locked, I felt a jolt of connection, like a thread pulling us together. Ethan, Mia, she said, her voice a melodic whisper. I've seen it. The chaos that awaits us if we don't unite. What do you mean? I pressed, leaning closer. The organization's plan is to incite fear. They want to turn the hybrids against humanity. I've seen visions of destruction, cities in flames, people terrified, the hybrids hunted like animals. Zara's voice trembled as she spoke, her deep-set eyes glistening with unshed tears. Mia's expression shifted from concern to determination. We need to warn people about this. If we can get the truth out, maybe we can change the narrative. Zara nodded. But you must be careful. They're watching. They know we're onto them. What can we do? I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. I can help you, Zara said, her gaze piercing into mine. But you have to trust me. I can sense their plans. We need to infiltrate their ranks, gather evidence that will expose them for what they truly are. Then let's do it, I said, feeling a surge of adrenaline. We don't have a moment to lose. As we formulated our plan, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were stepping into a storm. The world outside was rife with fear and confusion, and now we were in the eye of it, trying to navigate a path that could lead to either salvation or destruction. The stakes had never been higher, and I knew that each decision we made would reverberate far beyond our small circle. The hidden agenda was more sinister than I had imagined, and we were running out of time to uncover the truth. The air in my lab was thick with tension as the last remnants of the ambush faded into the shadows. I could still hear the echoes of footsteps retreating, the adrenaline coursing through my veins. My heart raced as I surveyed the disarray left behind, papers strewn about, glass shattered, and the computer screens flickering ominously. My research, my life's work, had been tossed aside as if it were nothing. Mia. I called out, my voice breaking through the silence. I needed her. I needed someone who could help me make sense of this chaos. Moments later, she burst through the door, her expression a mix of concern and determination. What happened, Ethan? She asked, scanning the room. I heard the commotion. Are you okay? I'm fine, I replied, though my hands trembled slightly. But we have to move fast. They're trying to silence us. I gestured to the scattered papers, the remnants of evidence I had gathered about the organization behind the hybrids. They want to keep the truth buried, Mia. We can't let that happen. Mia's eyes narrowed as she took in the scene. What do you need me to do? We need to warn the public, I said, urgency fueling my words. If we don't expose Senator Harris and the organization's true intentions, the hybrids will be branded as terrorists. We have to act before it's too late. I'm with you, she said, determination lacing her voice. Let's confront Harris at his rally. If we can gather evidence of his involvement, we might be able to sway public opinion. But we need to be careful, he has powerful allies. I nodded, my mind racing through the logistics. Zara can help us. Her abilities might allow us to gather information directly from Harris or even the crowd. We just need to convince her. As we hurriedly made our way to Zara's location, I wrestled with my thoughts. This was no longer just about science or the truth, it was about survival. The hybrids were not just victims of circumstance, they were our only hope for bridging the divide between our species. When we reached Zara, she was meditating in a secluded corner of a park, her presence calming amidst the chaos. I knelt beside her, urgency evident in my voice. Zara, we need your help. Senator Harris is speaking at a rally, and we have to expose him. Can you use your abilities to gather evidence? Zara opened her eyes, her gaze piercing through me. I can sense the tumultuous emotions surrounding him. But be warned, Ethan. The truth can be a weapon, and not everyone will accept it. I understand, I replied, feeling the weight of her words. But we can't let fear dictate our actions. If we don't act, the hybrids will face a fate worse than death. With a slow nod, Zara rose to her feet, a look of determination washing over her features. Let's go. The rally was a cacophony of voices, a sea of faces filled with anticipation and anxiety. As we approached the stage, the atmosphere crackled with tension. Senator Harris stood at the podium, radiating charisma and confidence, but I could sense the darkness lurking beneath his polished exterior. Zara, can you feel what he's hiding? I asked, glancing at her. Yes, she whispered, her eyes narrowing in concentration. There's fear, but also a sense of entitlement. He believes he is untouchable. As Harris began to speak, his words dripped with reassurance, promising safety and security. I could see the crowd hanging on his every word, their expressions a mix of hope and trepidation. But just as the tension reached its peak, Zara stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. Senator Harris, she called out, her voice echoing through the crowd. I have something to share. The crowd turned, murmurs rippling through the audience as they registered her presence, a hybrid standing defiantly before the man they revered. I felt a knot of anxiety in my stomach. Would they turn on her? Zara, wait. I shouted, but it was too late. She raised her hands, a shimmer of energy pulsating from her fingertips. I can show you the truth about the hybrids and the dark agenda behind their emergence. Gasps filled the air as images began to materialize, showcasing the hidden experiments, the manipulation, and the conspiracy that had fueled the fear surrounding hybrids. The crowd's gasps turned to shouts of confusion and anger, their emotions swirling like a storm. Enough. Harris barked, his voice slicing through the chaos. This is nothing but a ploy to incite fear. These creatures are not to be trusted. His words ignited a backlash, the crowd erupting into a frenzy. As panic spread, I felt the ground shift beneath us. I turned to Mia, her expression a mix of fear and determination. We need to get out of here, she shouted over the clamor. But as we tried to escape the chaos, I could see the faces of the hybrids around us contorting with fear, their fates hanging in the balance. The line between ally and enemy blurred, and I realized that we were standing on the precipice of a war, one that could either unite us or tear us apart forever. The air was thick with tension after the rally, a palpable divide spreading across the nation like wildfire. I could feel it pressing down on me as I stood in the cramped, dimly lit room where Ethan and I had taken refuge. News reports flickered on the screen, each one more sensational than the last, each one deepening the chasm between supporters and detractors of the hybrids. Headlines screamed about terrorism and threats, while others called for a peaceful coexistence. It was chaos, and I was at the center of it. Did you see that? They're painting them as monsters, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, my heart racing as I turned to Ethan, who was hunched over his laptop, furiously typing. This isn't just a story anymore, it's a war. Ethan looked up, his brow furrowed. We need to get our message out there. If we don't, the narrative will spiral out of control. Zara deserves a chance to show the world who she really is. Do you think we can convince people? I asked, a creeping doubt settling in my stomach. After what happened at the rally, people are scared. They don't want to listen to anything that challenges their fears. He paused, the weight of the moment hanging in the air. Fear has a way of blinding people. But if we can just get the truth out there, maybe we can turn the tide. As he spoke, I glanced at the window, the city outside still buzzing, unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. I thought of Zara, the hybrid with a heart as fierce as her abilities, caught in a world that saw her as a threat. I felt a pang of guilt for all the times I had reported on the bizarre and the sensational, never fully grasping the human cost of those stories. Just then the door swung open, and Zara stepped in, her eyes wide and shimmering with urgency. "Ethan, Mia, we need to talk." "I had a vision," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "What did you see?" Ethan asked, instantly alert. "There's going to be an attack. They're planning something against us. Something violent," she replied, her breath coming in quick bursts. "I could sense it. There's a group mobilizing, and they're not just protesting anymore. They want to hurt us." My stomach dropped. "How soon?" "Soon. We have to warn everyone, but it's not just about the hybrids," she said, pacing the small room, her hands wringing together. "They'll come for anyone who supports us too." Ethan clenched his fists. "Then we need to act fast. We can't let this happen. If we can broadcast the truth before they strike, it might just save lives." "But how?" I interjected, my mind racing. "We can't just go out there and shout it from the rooftops. We need a platform, something that can reach as many people as possible." Zara's eyes lit up with an idea. "The local news station, if we can get in touch with them, they might let us use their equipment for a live broadcast. We could reach millions." Ethan nodded, a plan forming in his mind. "Let's do it. We'll make a case for the hybrids, for what they truly are. We have to appeal to the humanity in people." The urgency of Zara's vision propelled us into action. We raced through the streets of New York, past the throngs of people, many of whom still held signs from the rally. I could see their expressions, fear, anger, confusion, and it made my heart ache. I had once considered myself an impartial observer, but now I felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on me. As we reached the news station, the receptionist eyed us warily, clearly unsure of our intentions. "What do you want?" she asked, her tone defensive. "We need to speak to someone in charge." "It's urgent," Ethan insisted, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside me. I could see the tension in his shoulders, the determination in his eyes. "Back off, buddy. We're not interested in your conspiracy theories," she replied, crossing her arms. Zara stepped forward, her voice calm yet powerful. "It's not a theory. Lives are at stake. Please, we need to warn everyone before it's too late." After what felt like an eternity, the receptionist relented and led us into a small conference room. Moments later, a producer entered, his expression skeptical but curious. "So, you're saying there's going to be an attack on hybrids?" "Yes," Ethan said, taking a deep breath. "And we have to get the truth out before that happens. We want to go live, to show the world who these hybrids really are." The producer looked at us, and I could see the wheels turning in his mind. "You have a minute. Make it count." As we prepared for the broadcast, I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me. This was it, our chance to change the narrative, to reach out to the hearts of those who were blinded by fear. I glanced at Zara, who looked determined, yet there was a hint of vulnerability in her eyes. She was not just a hybrid, she was a person, and she deserved to be seen as such. "Are you ready?" I asked, my voice steady but filled with a nervous energy. Zara nodded, and for a moment, I could see the flicker of hope shining through her fear. "Let's do this." As I stood in the chaos of the standoff, the air thickened with tension, and the sounds of shouting filled my ears. The hybrids were cornered, surrounded by government forces, their expressions a mix of fear and defiance. I could see Zara in the midst of it all, her eyes glowing with a fierce determination that resonated with the power she held. "We have to protect them." I shouted to Mia, who was beside me, her camera rolling to capture every moment. "How are we going to do that, Ethan?" she yelled back, her voice barely audible over the din. "They see them as threats." Zara closed her eyes, and I watched as her brow furrowed in concentration. I felt a ripple in the air, as if the very fabric of reality shifted around her. "Listen to me," she projected, her voice echoing in the minds of the hybrids. "You are not alone. Stand together, trust in your strength." Suddenly, the hybrids began to move as one, their fear transforming into a palpable energy. I felt it too, a surge of hope that coursed through me. "Look." I pointed as they linked arms, a living wall of defiance against the armed forces surrounding them. "Zara is rallying them," Mia exclaimed, her eyes wide. The hybrids formed a protective circle, their eyes locked on the soldiers with a fierce resolve. I could see the realization dawning on the government forces. They were not facing mere creatures but beings of incredible power and unity. Then, in the midst of the turmoil, I caught a glimpse of a figure slipping through the chaos, a shadowy silhouette that seemed to blend with the darkness. My instincts kicked in, and I pushed through the crowd, my heart racing. "Mia, stay with Zara," I shouted, but I could barely hear her response. I followed the figure into a side alley, my mind racing with questions. Who were they? What did they want? Just as I was about to confront them, I stumbled upon a heavy door marked with a faded symbol. It felt ancient, almost as if it had been waiting for me. With a shove, I opened it, stepping into a hidden chamber that was dimly lit and filled with strange artifacts. As I explored the room, a strange feeling washed over me. Something was here, something significant. My hands brushed over a dusty tablet inscribed with symbols that seemed to pulse with energy. Suddenly, it clicked, a revelation coursed through me. The hybrids were not mere lab experiments, as I had believed, but descendants of ancient aliens who had visited Earth long before humanity had even begun to write its history. I rushed back toward the chaos, my heart pounding. "Mia, Zara, you won't believe what I found." But when I emerged, the scene had escalated. The hybrids were demonstrating their powers, showcasing agility and strength that astounded the onlookers. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once. Then, just as I thought things couldn't get any more chaotic, Zara collapsed to the ground, her luminous energy flickering like a dying star. "Zara!" I shouted, rushing to her side. "What's happening?" Her eyes fluttered open, and I could see the pain etched on her face. "Ethan. I'm losing my connection to them," she whispered, gasping for breath. "I can't hold it much longer." In that moment, the mysterious figure I had seen earlier stepped forward. They were tall and imposing, with an aura that demanded attention. As they approached, a hush fell over the crowd. "I am the last of the ancient aliens," they declared, their voice resonating with authority. "I have come to reclaim what was lost." The world around us seemed to freeze as the implications of those words sank in. The hybrids had a history beyond our understanding, and now, an ancient lineage was emerging from the shadows. Questions raced through my mind: the hybrids, the government, and their true intentions. All of it was intertwined with the past, our past. Zara's eyes widened as she looked at the figure. You were part of the first contact," she gasped, her voice weak but filled with recognition. "Yes," the figure replied, their gaze piercing. "And it is time for the truth to be revealed, for the destinies of our people to unite once more." As the reality of the situation began to unfold before me, I knew that everything was about to change. The hybrid's existence, our history, and the future of both species hung in the balance. I took a deep breath, my mind racing with thoughts and emotions. This was only the beginning, and the world was watching.